Greetings, wizards! Today, we're ranking the top 10 best dragon shouts in Skyrim as voted by you. We'll be analysing each shout's advantages and disadvantages in great detail. I'll also show you where you can find these shouts, how you can improve them, and I'll even throw in some bonus dragon shouts at the end. So prepare yourselves, wizards, to be masters of the Thu'um. Thank you to all who contributed to this ranking. Now let's get into it. Number 10. Solitaire. This dragon shout is from the Dawnguard expansion and can be learned from the undead dragon, Durnovir, after defeating him during the Beyond Death quest. At full power, Solitaire casts Soul Trap upon any victim up to level 99, drains their health by 300 points, and if they die within 2 seconds, it fills a soul gem. But saving the best for last, Solitaire can even reanimate their body to fight for you for 60 seconds, if they're not too clumsy. Just to put things into perspective, it works on the Forge Master, the Ebony Warrior, and even Karstag himself. Now of course, it's pointless reanimating their bodies, but if you use this shout on a boss who's guarded by a number of minions, it's incredibly useful. You can even double your thrall's duration with Necromancy, increase its health by 100 points with Dark Souls, and have another summon active at the same time with Twin Souls. So if you want to get the full potential out of this shout, a high conjuration skill will do nicely. But there are a few downsides to Solitaire, and the first is that dragons are immune to the Soul Trap effect, but they still take 300 points of health damage. The second is that Solitaire can sometimes knock the weapon out of a melee warrior's hands, making them way less effective in combat. And lastly, Solitaire requires 6 dragon souls to unlock, as all words of Summon Durnovir need to be unlocked first. Number 9. Marked for Death. You can learn this dragon shout from the following locations. Interestingly, Marked for Death was voted 3rd for its power and 5th overall for frequency, which I didn't expect, and I'm actually kind of surprised it made the top 10. But I think it sneaked its way in due to the fact that it was patched fairly recently, and perhaps not many are aware of its nerf. At full power, Marked for Death damages the target's armor by 75 points per second for 60 seconds, and causes them to lose 3 points of health per second for 60 seconds. That's a total of 4,500 points of armor damage and 180 points of health damage, which is a lot. And since Marked for Death has a cooldown of just 40 seconds, you can stack it on a single target, causing them to lose even more of their health and armor. This works great against enemies with large health pools and who have a lot of armor, like bosses, dragons, and just tanky individuals in general. However, Marked for Death used to be so much better, and the effect on the target's armor was permanent and stackable, meaning you could one-punch the Ebony Warrior.
At last, some part.
But in a recent Skyrim update, this bug got fixed, and sadly, the effect now wears off. But it's not all bad news, because our followers, who often get in the way of our shouts, no longer have to suffer from a permanent debuff to their armor. So Lydia, from that long-lost playthrough of mine, is now free from carrying that burden. Number 8. Whirlwind Sprint. This dragon shout can be found at 3 different locations. Unsurprisingly, Whirlwind Sprint was voted as our most frequently used shout in the game, and to be honest, I can see why. for at full power, you'll be able to dash forward 100 feet at an astounding speed, making everything a blur around you. And there are an insane amount of advantages to this, so let's begin. Firstly, this speed makes escaping danger a breeze, literally, and if you're overwhelmed by enemies, it can save you. It's also an extremely versatile shout that can be used across any build, because on the flip side, you can rapidly close the distance to enemy archers and mages, minimizing damage to you. It has many uses outside of combat too,
Hello there.
and one you may not be aware of is that you can reach inaccessible areas with it. You may even find some hidden treasures on the other side. But let's be real, the main reason this shout is used all the time is because we're loot hoarders. Straight up. We can't help but overindulge ourselves in any area. But thankfully, good old Whirlwind Sprint is there to pick up our slack and get us to our destinations ungovlim. But hear me out, because there's a sneaky exploit that will change your life. All you've got to do is use Whirlwind Sprint and unsheath your weapon at the same time. The great thing about it is that it lets you travel even further when you're over-encumbered, so no need to hold back on the loot hoarding anymore. Other advantages of Whirlwind Sprint include speeding up long swims, bypassing traps, clipping through walls, and avoiding invisible barriers. It really does it all, but just like any other shout, Whirlwind Sprint has a few drawbacks. Firstly, you need to be extra careful when you're at heights, because you definitely don't want to Fusadar an enemy off a cliff, only to realize while hovering over that cliff that you had Whirlwind Sprint activated the whole time. Secondly, while it's certainly a useful shout in large open areas, it's not really a shout you use in close-quartered Nordic tombs, for which many hours will be spent. And lastly, when you are over-encumbered, you can't get better than a noble steed. The undead Arvak, in particular, is fantastic, because you can summon him indoors too. Not to mention that when you're riding a horse and over-encumbered, you can still fast travel. Number 7. Summon Durnevere. This is our second dragon shout from the Dawnguard expansion, and just like Solitaire, you can learn it after defeating Durnevere during the Beyond Death quest. At full power, as its title suggests, it summons Durnevere from the Soul Calm to fight for you. And first off, he looks badass. He's got big gnarly spikes protruding from his back, and wicked horns adorning his head. And as an undead dragon, his flesh is withered and decayed, his wings weathered and worn, adding to his awe-inspiring appearance. So he's not a dragon you want chasing after you, especially since he's a beast in combat. Alongside his deadly dragon breath and ferocious melee attacks, he can unleash a devastating array of shouts, including Drain Vitality, Frost Breath, and his own unique shout that summons a Bone Man, a Mist Man, and a Wrath Man. So as well as having aid from the skies, 3 separate undead entities protect you on the ground. And if 4 allies aren't enough, just unlock Twin Souls and summon in a 5th. The Dark Souls perk also gives Durnevere 100 more health points. I find the best time to summon Durnevere is when there are a lot of enemies, so be sure to plonk him at forts and at the Civil War battles to unleash destruction. You can even summon him at Skulldarfen, but one of the craziest advantages of Durnevere is that you can summon him indoors. Do be careful though, because Durnevere is a big boy, and he likes a lot of room. So if you summon his big ass in a confined area, he won't appreciate that, and will punish you. And unlike his rival, Odaving, Durnevere cannot be ridden with the Bend Will shout, which is a shame, because riding an undead dragon would have been magnificent. Number 6. Bend Will. This dragon shout hails from the Dragonborn expansion. You can find one word at Sayring's Watch, while the other two are taught by Hermaeus Mora. With the first word of Bend Will, you can cleanse the Allmaker stones on Solstheim and learn their powers. With the second word, you can force people and creatures to become your allies for 30 seconds. And at full power, you can tame and ride dragons. That last one is pretty amazing. But before we get to that, let's explore the first two tiers. The Allmaker stones, for starters, give you some powerful effects, but unlike the standing stones, you can only use them once before they need to be reactivated. So while pretty cool, they're not exactly convenient. The second word of Bend Will, on the other hand, can be a lifesaver. It's similar to Soul Tear, but you don't have to kill the target to make them your ally. So you can use Bend Will at the start of the fight to turn loads of hostiles against each other while you sit back and relax. But saving the best for last, there's nothing quite like soaring through the skies of Tamriel on the back of a dragon and commanding it to rain down destruction on the world. You can even lend a hand at the same time by firing your spells, but unfortunately, bows and crossbows don't work. If heights aren't your thing either, fear not, as the beast can take off without you, and will continue to do the damage on your behalf. Just be careful it doesn't attack any of the locals. And I'm sure we've all been fed up with these flying lizards from time to time, and wish they'd all just buzz off. Well, this is also Bend Will's speciality. It takes away that red dot in your compass, both of you get to live, and you can fast travel to your destination, no questions asked. Okay, maybe just this one. So Bend Will is a great substitute for Kind's Peace, and also Dragon Rend for that matter, because like a well-trained pup, dragons stay by your side and land right next to you. And this next tip isn't for the faint-hearted, but while a dragon is in this docile state, you can take advantage by backstabbing them. What's better is that once their health reaches below 50%, their injuries prevent them from flying, making the fight much easier. Some may find this cruel, but these dragons probably killed my ancestors brutally. So I say it's fair game. The one major drawback of Bend Will is that it doesn't work on undead, which is unfortunate, as they're often found in groups. Number 5. Slow Time. You can find this dragon shout at the following locations. At full power, this shout slows time by 90% for 16 seconds, making everything around you move at a snail's pace. However, the great thing about it is that you can move much faster than other NPCs.
I die for my people.
This effect best suits assassins, as they can unleash a flurry of arrows toward their enemies before they even have a chance to flinch. But that's not to say it's not useful for other builds. To ensure you go undetected for that sneak bonus, be sure to unlock Quiet Casting. And speaking of spells, damage per second effects, like the flame spell, are not affected by slow time, making them much more deadly. Just make sure that you're the one doing the damage.
Oh my god!
Additionally, with slow time's help, you can even extend the duration of your Fortify Enchanting and Fortify Smithing potions, allowing you to craft even more items before they expire. Its 16 seconds should do the job, but with the stability perk and a fortify alteration potion, you can triple its duration. In other words, you'll have all the time in the world. Hey, Wizard, are you enjoying the video so far? If so, a cheeky thumbs up would be splendid. And I've gotta say, it would be awesome if you could show some love on Patreon too. Not only would you be supporting me, but you'll also get some fantastic bonuses in return. To join me on Patreon, scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description. Every bit of support is greatly appreciated, and I can't thank you enough. Now let's get back to the ranking. Number 4. Become ethereal. This is our second Dragon Shout from the Dragonborn expansion, and you can learn it from 3 different locations. I'm glad to see it got voted so highly for its power and frequency, as it's one of my personal favorites. For at full strength, Become Ethereal transforms you into an ethereal form that makes you invincible for 18 seconds. And with a cooldown of just 40 seconds, you can almost spend 1/3 of your time in this invulnerable state, which is rather insane. So if combat isn't quite going as planned, this shout can save you, and your health, stamina, and magicka stores can replenish safely. Meanwhile, spellcasters and melee warriors will continue to attack you, depleting their own reserves and exhausting themselves, leaving them vulnerable. However, you won't be able to fight back without the effect ending immediately. But of course, there are always some crafty workarounds, and if you cast a cloak spell, like Flame Cloak, before using Become Ethereal, you can deal some nice damage over time, while retaining the effect. Summoning creatures beforehand is a great tactic too, and as a wizard, you can even charge up your master spells and scrolls without interruption, unleashing devastation. Become Ethereal is also superb for melee attackers to safely close in on ranged assailants, and since the effect gives you an unlimited supply of stamina, you can save that green bar for the power attacks. On the flip side, you can use it to retreat quickly too, but I always preferred using Whirlwind Sprint for that purpose. Furthermore, since the first word of Become Ethereal has a cooldown of just 20 seconds and a duration of 8 seconds, you can repeatedly use it against Dragon Breath attacks. So now we know how useful Become Ethereal is in combat. What about outside of combat? Well, one of my favorite uses for this shout is to descend from great heights super fast. It's also excellent for bypassing traps, and if you need an alternative to Vampire Sight or the Khajiit's Night Eye effect, you should look no further. But if your screen is dark, just crank up your brightness. As always, there are a few downsides, and in addition to fighting, you can't use potions or spells without the effect ending either. So sadly, healing is out of the question. However, you can meditate on the word Thyme from good old party snacks to regenerate your health 25% faster while ethereal. Lastly, you will still need to be careful of the light in the Twilight Sepulchre, the darkness in Apocrypha, as well as the lightning in Sovngarde. Number 3. Dragonrend. This was the first dragon shout ever created by mortals as a weapon against dragons, and the world would have been a very different place without it. But thankfully, 3 Nordic heroes saved the day and passed down their knowledge in case the dragons returned. It's an essential shout, for at full power, Dragonrend forces a dragon to land for 22 seconds. It causes them to experience the concept of mortality, an idea they simply can't comprehend. As a result, it tears at their very soul, breaking their concentration and preventing them from flying. This is a true display of power that makes fighting dragons a whole lot easier, because we all know how incredibly annoying those worms can be. With a cooldown of just 15 seconds, you can permanently keep dragons on the ground, making them essentially sitting ducks. Dragon Rend doesn't cost any dragon souls to unlock either, but you do learn it fairly late into the main questline. The same goes for Bend Will. But this shout not only makes dragons vulnerable to your backstabs, but it forces them to land right beside you, which Dragon Rend doesn't exactly do a great job of. Nevertheless, it's still an essential shout, especially since you can keep dragons permanently grounded. Number 2. Dragon Aspect. Now, if you want to look badass and be extremely powerful at the same time, this dragon shout is the bomb. From the Dragonborn expansion, Dragon Aspect can be found in the following locations. At full power, it gives you 125 extra points of armor, boosts the damage of your power attacks by 25%, grants you 25% fire and frost resistance, reduces the cooldown time of your shouts by 20%, and summons an ancient dragonborn to aid you when your health is below 50% for 300 seconds. So it's safe to say that this shout is incredible for all types of builds, and the fact that you get to wear an insane looking spectral dragon armor on top is outstanding. I can see why it was voted so highly for both power and frequency. Now let's explore its many advantages. Melee attackers, for starters, benefit the most from this shout, as their power attacks will be stronger, and the additional armor points means they can take more hits. Having the ancient dragonborn by your side can be a godsend too, as he's the real deal. He can use multiple shouts in combat: Fire Breath, Frost Breath, and Unrelenting Force, and will aim to kill all enemies within close range. And as a wizard who prefers his own space, I love this shout, as he only gets summoned when I'm actually in trouble. And since Dragon Aspect only has a 5-second cooldown, you can use another shout almost immediately, which can be backed up by even more shouts thanks to its 20% shout cooldown reduction. The 25% fire and frost resistance is a great addition too, especially if you're a vampire. Better yet, the effects of Dragon Aspect can even carry over when you transform, giving both vampire lords and werewolves huge buffs. Just take a look at my Molten Werewolf Wizard. If you're a vampire, be sure to unlock the Necromage perk too, as it makes Dragon Aspect last even longer. But with all this power, they had to nerf it in some way, and unfortunately, you can only use this shout once per day. But that's nothing the wait function can't handle. Overall, it's a masterful dragon shout, and perfect for a dragonborn. Number 1. Unrelenting Force. I mean, did we really expect anything else? This dragon shout is mesmerizing, and I'm glad you wizards think so too. And isn't it ironic that the best shout in Skyrim is the easiest one to obtain? But while it took the crown for power, it didn't come without some downvotes. How dare you? You can learn this iconic shout from Bleedfall's Barrow and from the mighty Greybeards of High Hrothgar. At full power, Unrelenting Force blasts away foes with ease and has a cooldown of 45 seconds. It can pass through enemies, impacting others behind them. making everyone fall like a bunch of drunken lords. But that's not all it's good for, as you can safely detonate traps and tripwires with it, and can harvest fish super easily. And if it's not already powerful enough, you can meditate on the word Fus from Parthenax, and accept Dragonborn Force from Hermaeus Mora. In fact, you can cheese many tough bosses with Unrelenting Force, and can use Become Ethereal to quickly collect your loot. It's a shout that never gets old, and watching enemies ragdoll is just poetry in motion. Unrelenting Force was the first shout we ever heard of in Skyrim, so it's hugely nostalgic. I still get goosebumps watching the trailer back today, 12 years on. I can't say that any other games hit me in the feels like Skyrim, and although I really wanted to end Fus Ro Dah on a high note, I still have to mention some minor drawbacks. Large targets like dragons and mammoths, and enemies that float like dragon priests and lurkers are immune to the push. Additionally, mages with wards can repel this shout, which is a bummer. But it's not all that bad, since some higher level Draugr love to use it too, and we can repel it as well. Overall, Unrelenting Force is an absolute unit. Iconic, classic, and fantastic. If you've made it this far, then hats off to you, Wizard. You are appreciated. And as promised, here are some bonus shouts I don't want you to miss out on. Stormcore. At full power, this dragon shout calls forth a ferocious storm that lasts for 180 seconds, striking victims within 150 feet with a powerful lightning strike that deals 80 points of damage every 3 to 6 seconds. It looks terrific and brutal at the same time, makes light work of well-guarded forts, and is especially useful during the Civil War. This powerful shout does come at a huge cost though, and has a cooldown of 10 minutes. You'll want to be extra careful when using it around friendlies too. And while you can't use it indoors, it does actually work in Blackreach. Aura Whisper. At full power, this dragon shout reveals all life forms to you for 30 seconds. This makes it better than Detect Life and Detect Dead, as it can also find Daedra, Dwarven, and Ashspawn. It's also great for hunting, so wherever your adventures take you, you can safely rely on Aura Whisper to watch your back. Elemental Fury. At full power, this dragon shout increases the attack speed of your weapons by 100% for 15 seconds. And if that's not fast enough, be sure to unlock the dual flurry perks while dual wielding. With those perks, you can cut down enemies rapidly while minimizing damage to you. And it even works on unique weapons with innate enchantments, like the long hammer, allowing it to swing super fast. Don't forget to use it when mining too. However, Elemental Fury doesn't work with most enchanted weapons straight out of the box. But if you dual wield a non-enchanted weapon in your left hand, you're good to go. Clear Skies. Some may think this a simple dragon shout, but it's so much more than that. In fact, you can use the first word of Clear Skies to stagger your foes permanently, thanks to its rapid 5-second cooldown. It's a seriously game-breaking shout when used in this manner, but sadly it doesn't work indoors. Instead, you should use the first word of Solitaire, which has a similar effect. Sweeping away bad weather to reveal a beautiful night sky is a bonus too, especially in survival mode. And there we have it, our top 10 dragon shouts ranked, with some bonuses to finish off. You should now be very proficient when it comes to the Thu'um. My next ranking will be on Skyrim armor sets, so you can look forward to that one coming soon. And then I'll probably get to work on part 3 of Skyrim's bosses. Only the biggest and strongest remain. So be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out. As always, it was a pleasure having you on board, wizards, and be sure to THEWELSHWIZARD'S the like button if you enjoyed. Thank you all for watching, for this has been the Welsh Wizard, and I shall see you all in the next one.